All right, well, welcome everyone. My name's Stephen Moe, and I'm a partner at Parry Field Lawyers. And today I'm joined by Cora Granger, who's a law clerk at Parry Field. Thanks for joining me, Cora.
Thanks, Stephen.
It's great to have you here. We deal with each other basically every day. There's some legal issues, something that we're talking about. But the reason you're on this is you have bought your first home. And so I'm really keen to understand from your perspective as a first home buyer, you're in the law firm and you're talking with people, but for you practically, what were some of the things that you had to think through, or that were steps that you wish that you'd known about, going back before you bought your first home?
Yeah. So my husband and I purchased our first home just over 18 months ago. And we had been saving up for about 3 or 4 years and sort of preparing. And so over that time, we've done a bit of research and had a little bit of an understanding about the process. I had started studying law by that point, so I sort of knew a little bit about the terminology. And also I was working at Parry Field at that time, but not in the conveyancing team. So I sort of, again, I understood the terminology, but not so much the process. And so I would just suggest to first home buyers that they learn as much about the process as they can before you actually start house hunting and before you put an offer in on a property, because it just means that it will go, it can be a lot less stressful for you if you already sort of know what it's going to look like. So there are a couple of things that I would suggest that first home buyers be aware of sort of as soon as you're seriously thinking about looking at property. And so the first one I would suggest is that you chat to the professionals very early on and get a good team behind you. And so once you are seriously looking at purchasing property, sit down and have a chat to your bank or your mortgage broker and work through whether it's actually feasible for you to purchase a property. So they'll be able to work through with you your deposit, what your deposit's made up of and how much it is. So it might include savings, a Kiwisaver withdrawal, home start grant, maybe a gift from your parents. So they'll be able to work through all of that with you and sort of the requirements behind that. They'll also work through your income, whether you can actually service a loan, with what your other expenses are, and ultimately come up with a budget for you. So what sort of price range you're looking at for a house. Once you've got an idea of that and what and whether you actually can purchase a property, have a chat to a lawyer at that point.
Cora, can I just ask you a question just on that part, talking to the bank and things like, it sounds easy the way you phrase it, but how was it for you actually going into a bank or a mortgage broker? Like, was it intimidating? Was it scary? Or how was it?
Yeah, for me, it wasn't so intimidating. I had a few contacts through work who I knew. Initially, I met with a mortgage broker and we sat down and went through our savings, whether we were eligible for Kiwisaver. And that was about 6 months before we actually purchased our house. So at that point, we sort of sat down and I just said, am I on the right track? What should I be doing? And that was really encouraging for me. And then when we actually started looking seriously, I had a contact through our bank. And so I just sat down and met with her and we went through it. And it was actually just me on my own. My husband didn't make that meeting. And then over the weekend, they chipped away on that and then sent through a letter telling me how much we could afford for a house.
So I guess the point is that they're happy to talk with people, future customers, right? And that it doesn't need to be an intimidating thing. It's just a case of getting the right people, the right advice, the right knowledge.
Yeah, and they know that you don't know a lot about it either and what's required. So they're there to explain things to you and help you through the process. So just use them, really.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really good. So then, what was some of the next steps that you took or things that you wish that you'd known? You spoke with a lawyer?
Yeah. So sit down and have a chat with a lawyer. I would suggest that you do that before you've even found a house. And the reason for that is that the process can be quite daunting and it moves quite quickly once you've put an offer in. So if you have already sat down with a lawyer, They've talked to you about the process, what's required from you at each step, and you've also had a chance to talk to them about your circumstances, what you're planning to do with the property you purchase, where you're planning to buy, whether you're using Kiwisaver, all those sort of things. Once you've found the right property, your lawyer will be able to work with you to put an offer in. And on that, I would say that it's really important to always get your lawyer to review the documents that you're signing. So it's really important to make sure that they review that offer before you sign it. And the reason for that is that they can check that all the clauses are there that need to be there, and actually that the clauses are worded in a way that protects you. And that just means that, once you do put your offer in, you already know what happens next. You can sort of get the ball rolling.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the funny thing in a way is that buying your house is probably one of the biggest purchases that you'll ever make.
Yeah.
And yet people sometimes don't take the trouble to read the contracts themselves or to check. But just, I know you're quite familiar with the contracts for buying a house, but the key parts are that there's sort of a template wording, isn't there, that is often used. And then there's other bits which can be added in, which can vary depending on who drafts it, who writes it. So what are some of the key causes that people should be looking out for in that back section?
So often with a first home buyer, you'll often be using your Kiwisaver, and often you'll be using it for the deposit. Right. So there's a special clause that we add in where you're using your Kiwisaver as the deposit. Often with house purchases, if you're borrowing from a bank, you'll need it to be conditional on finance. So you'll be working with your bank to ensure that they will give you that mortgage. Often there'll be some due diligence conditions in there as well. So you might like to get a builder's report done. Often your lawyer will review the LIM report, which is a council report, which just includes all the information held on the property by the council. And then there's also a title, which is actually the document that records your ownership of the property, and there can be some conditions and different things registered on that title, which your lawyer will review as well, just to make sure that there's no unwanted surprises when you do buy the house.
So would that be things like, I guess the technical term would be like easements or water rights or access, or where you can do certain things or not do certain things? Is that what it would cover?
Yeah, exactly.
And so the key documents then would be the offer for sale and purchase, a LIM, which I think is Land Information Memorandum.
Yeah, that's right.
And then a CT or certificate of title. Those would be sort of the key documents that I'm just thinking for people who've never seen them before, those would be the ones that they need to be looking out for.
Yeah, so those are some key documents that we'd often see. With Kiwisaver, you'll need to sign some documents to withdraw your funds as well. So those there's a declaration in there which either needs to be signed with a lawyer or with a JP. And then if you're using the Home Start Grant, there's also some documents you sign for those. And then before settlement, your bank will have documents that you sign, and your lawyer also has some extra documents.
Right. So there's lots of paper involved.
There's a lot of paper involved.
Yeah. And just as a first home buyer, you mentioned Kiwisaver and accessing funds. Can you just talk us through some of the detail on that? Like, what is available for a first home buyer?
Yeah, so in New Zealand, you can put once you start working, you can put some funds into a Kiwisaver account. So you can put either 3%, I think 4 or 6% and 8%. And then once you've been in Kiwisaver for 3 years or more, you can withdraw those funds, but you have to leave $1,000 in there. And so you can either use those as the deposit, which you pay to the vendor once you confirm the contract, or you can use them for settlement day. And so that's what we did. So we put quite a lot of savings in there and then withdrew that when we purchased our house. There's also a Home Start Grant, which is a government contribution. In order to be eligible for that, you have to have been contributing at least 3% for 3 years or more. So once you hit the 3-year mark for an existing home, you can withdraw $3,000.
Okay.
And for a brand new house, you can withdraw $6,000, and then that increases each year until you hit 5 years, where you can get a maximum of $5,000 for an existing home or $10,000 for a new home.
So it sounds like there's a few little things that would be helpful for people to know well in advance. For example, the 3-year periods that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So maybe if you're just finished school and started work, or you're you're out doing things, just making sure you're getting in the system so that you can start to build up some reserves. So if you do find a place, then you're able to easily walk through the door of what the government offers.
Yeah, exactly. It's really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And then I think in your situation, did you end up buying new or buying an older house, or how did that work?
We bought new, so we didn't go through the build process. By the time we bought the house, it pretty much just needed the landscaping done, but it was a brand new house, which we have loved, and it also meant that we got that extra money from the government, which was nice too.
Yeah, right. So that's another thing for a first home buyer to think through is, do I buy older or go for something that's newer in order to access those funds?
Yeah, and I guess it depends on your particular situation, but it's good to look at both options because there are some quite affordable new builds out there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And the difference of double glazing and a nice, efficient home in the long run sometimes is better. Having said that, though, if you can pick something up fairly cheap and do it up yourself, then there's a lot of pluses there as well, isn't there? So
yeah, that would be quite fun, I think, too.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. So just to finish off, if you could go back in time, so you bought the house 18 months ago, you said, if you could go back 2 years and tell yourself anything, what would be the key messages that you would want to have known with hindsight?
Yeah, so I think, again, just really cluing myself up on the process and what's needed at each stage, because as I said, once you've signed the agreement, it goes pretty quickly.
Right.
Even for me, knowing a bit about the terminology, I still didn't quite know how Kiwisaver worked. There's deadlines that you have to work towards, and it can be quite overwhelming. So if you're able to talk to people beforehand, do your research and talk to your lawyer, they're just able to sort of reassure you and tell you more about what happens at each stage, which will just make it a lot less stressful for you.
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, I think this video is going to help a lot of people because you've been there, you've done that, and you've been able to share with people what you wish that you'd known. And I know you're now doing quite a lot in the conveyancing team, aren't you? Helping people transfer. And in fact, you've probably talked with people who were in your situation and guiding them through the process, right?
Yeah, quite a few times.
Yeah. And Cora, I also know that you've written an article about some of these key points. So if people are interested, what we'll do is we'll put a link in the video notes, and then they can click that to find it. But also we'll put this video with the article. And if people have questions, it's okay to contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I work alongside Paul Owens and Ruth Judkins. And I think we've got quite a good team. I might be a bit biased, but you're always welcome to get in touch with us. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, we really appreciate your time today, Cora. We're in the middle of lockdown, so we're doing all this remotely. But yeah, I really appreciate your taking the time to share some of your experiences. And like I said, there's a lot more information at parryfield.com. So go there to check that out, as well as this topic. We do a lot with businesses. We do a lot helping people who have disputes. We do a lot with people who need wills or EPAs. We run across the full range of legal services. So buying and selling property is one of those. But I just want to say thank you, Cora, for coming on and sharing a bit of your own experiences. Thanks, Stephen.